Yeah, it's Dina, and I am making this video to address something that I have been praying about privately for probably the last 3 or 4 years. I haven't said much about it publicly. I haven't really, even made any, social media posts about it. I just been praying and seeking the Lord because it's something that has grieved my spirit, something that I've shed tears about, and something that I have really helped other women walk through. And so I just want to share it with you all today. So the title of the video is How to Discern If Someone Wants You or Your Money. And I think that this is important because what I have seen, what I am seeing happening, and then also just what I know from my own personal experience and other single women coming to me for counsel. My background is in counseling. I have the credentials to be a therapist. So I have a lot of single women who come to me for guidance when they're having difficulties or troubles or going through different things. And I have seen and heard so much abuse, whether it be sexual, physical, financial, spiritual abuse. I've seen and heard it all. And I keep it private and I don't share anyone's information, but at this point I think it needs to be addressed because I do think that the vulnerabilities, the struggles, and some of the pain that single women carry are often exploited. I think that single women are often preyed upon by people within the church and outside of the church, and it is concerning and it is alarming and it has to stop. And so I have helped walk women through things privately. I do a lot of private discipleship. Now I used to have a public ministry and I kind of let that go, and I just really focus on women individually. I've had women live with me. Most people don't even know that. I've had, I have women calling me. I have people that I walk through life together with. Last few years, that's been my main focus. But now I realize like there are more people who need to hear, they need to know what's going on, and they need support. And so I want to be that, and I hope that I can provide some resources or some help to a single woman who might need it in this hour. I want to acknowledge is that there are so many single women right now. There's so many people right now just seeking God. They want to know who God is. They want to hear God's voice. They're desperate to know God and be in relationship with God, and that is beautiful. So what we can basically say is there is a high demand for God, especially right now in this time where so many people are struggling and there has been so much loss and grief. People want God. God is in high demand. Unfortunately, there are people who see this high demand for God, and they see people seeking God, and they see it as an opportunity to capitalize off of that. They see the demand and they're like, I can supply something. I can supply a product. I can supply a service. I can supply a prophetic word, or whatever it is they want to capitalize on as they see this demand for God. And this is what we have to watch out for. Okay, people who want your money, they're not focused on your well-being. They're not focused on your relationship with God. They're not focused on you as an individual, interpersonally. They just want to be successful. They just want it for their own individual gain. And that is not okay. And this is why a lot of people end up hurt, and a lot of people walk away from God because they're disappointed in the people, not so much God, because God would never do that to us. And so I want to talk about how we can identify this and ways that we can counter it. In 2010, like I said, I started a young women's ministry called Saved in Style. At that time, it was primarily a prayer ministry. Like, we used to pray together every day at 5 a.m. We had Bible studies together. We fellowshiped together. We hung out together. And I think back in 2014 was the first time we did like a public prayer challenge, because most of the things that we had done had really been private. Like we would pray every day about everything. Like we pray about the world, the president, orphans, widows, everything. And then in 2014 we actually did the Pray Like a Wife prayer challenge for the first time. We did it amongst ourselves privately first, and then other people from outside of the ministry began to ask us to make it public. So we did, and to my surprise, like overnight, hundreds of women joined in the challenge to pray for, either the married women were praying for their husbands and the single women were praying for their future husbands. So we had like women from all over the world, literally like Africa, London, Bahamas, everywhere, joining in with us for prayer. And so that was a really good time. But one thing that I noticed during that time, which was a red flag for me back then, was that when we prayed about, whenever we did the Pray Like a Wife challenge, which we started to do annually, we would have hundreds of people. But when we would call for prayer about like for healing for the sick, or praying just to draw closer to God, the numbers would reduce significantly. Like people didn't want to just pray for anything. And I found that to be extremely odd. This was back before there was like Zoom calls and like all these different ministries. Like we had like a phone line prayer call, and that was like a big deal back then. So that was kind of alarming to me. But I just continue to do it because I'm like, Lord, there's so many women out here, and we want to make sure that they're drawing closer to you. So I just always made sure to direct women back to God. And so we did the Pray Like a Wife challenge, and I always did all the prayer challenges for free. If you ever came to one of my prayer events, you know that they were always free, because I made a vow to the Lord when I first got saved that if he ever allowed me to enter into ministry, I would never charge his people, I would never exploit his people, I would never try to take from his people, I would give to his people freely, just like it had been extended to me. When I was growing in God, the people that poured into me, I've never paid for prayer. I've never paid anyone to disciple me. I've never paid for a prophetic word. Everything was given unto me freely. And I said, Lord, I want to extend that to others. Prayers, the prayer challenges, everything was always free. It came out of my pocket. The Lord always supplied out of my needs. But around that time, we I was giving out the prayers for free. They were just on the website, and then some women asked like, hey, you should turn this into a journal so we can journal. And so I did that, and as a result, I started selling the Pray Like a Wife books, which it came because people asked me to do it, and it did really, really well. Like we sold a lot of books, and I would just take the money and pour it back into the ministry to to fund the events and different things that we were doing. And so that was okay, but it was still very concerning to me. Like it just always bothered me how much women would be interested in praying for a husband but wouldn't be interested in praying about other things. And so fast forward to 2017, I moved to California. Our ministry, I started to really back away from like doing public things and really just focus on individual discipleship. So I allowed certain single women to like live with me, and I would just walk people through their personal journey with Christ. And I really don't talk about it much, so you probably have been wondering, some people have been wondering, like, are you still doing ministry? Are you still doing anything? Yes, I just kind of switched to more interpersonal. Plus I went through some other my own personal challenges as a single woman, being experiencing hurt and experiencing different things. So God kind of shifted my calling and things that I were called to. I kind of started working with youth and working with victims and survivors of sex trafficking, and that became like a focus for me for a few years. So I say all that to say, when I was in California, God really just led me to take the book Pray Like a Wife off Amazon. And so I've had women reach out to me, and I did want to address that because someone actually just emailed me recently like, hey, where's the book? I've been trying to get it. You can't access it, because I have really been praying, because as years have passed, I've seen more people realize like the same thing that I realized, which was a red flag for me, is that if you talk about a husband to single women, if you talk about getting a marriage, if you talk about relationships, that's what people are interested in, and that is a way that people have used single women to make money. Basically, like, you will make a lot of money if you come out with a book about relationships. If you do an event around relationships, which I am not saying that anything is wrong with doing an event around relationships, I'm just saying if someone's mindset is, hey, single women, they like to hear about relationships, let's talk about relationships, or let's write a book, or let's do an event around relationships so that we can get a lot of women, or we can make a lot of money, that's when it becomes a problem. And I definitely see that happening, and I definitely see how women are being preyed upon, single women specifically are being preyed upon in that regard. And that is what the problem is. And so for me, I didn't want any parts of that. I'm like, God, I don't want to be associated with that. I don't want to be known for talking about relationships. I don't want to be known for that. I want to be known for leading women to you. And that's it. So I kind of just disconnected from the Pray Like a Wife for a while, because that was never the intention. And sometimes our intentions are good and things can end bad, right? The other day I received an email from someone asking me like, hey, I can't find the book. I'm like, yeah, I took it down. So I don't know. I don't have the answers yet. I'm still seeking the Lord. But what I do know is that it starts in our heart. We have to really search our heart for any idolatry, because if we idolize marriage, you know, it's gonna show in who we seek after, the type of ministries we go after, who we attract and who we are attracted to. That God is the person that we are seeking, and everything else is extra. Like, it's nothing wrong with praying for your future husband, or, you know, praying for your husband. It's nothing wrong with, you know, any of that, like reading the books about waiting and marriage and all of those things. It is something wrong when we want those type of books more than we want the Bible. It is something wrong when we're seeking after ministries just because they're talking about marriage and they're talking about relationships, and they talk about relationships and marriage more than they talk about Jesus Christ and the gospel. That is wrong. And so that's where we have to search our hearts to make sure that we aren't becoming the demand that they actually are going to capitalize off of, right? The other thing is how we idolize, you know, beauty and hair and the way people dress and things like that. A lot of times it's things in our heart that make us seek after people who are not good for us, and it's because we are attracted to those things. And so for me, you know, the women that poured into me, there are so many women around the world that I personally know who would never charge you to pray for you, and they can pray heaven down. They would never charge to disciple you. They would never ever charge you for any of that. They love Jesus and they want to share the gospel. They're literally sitting praying for God to send people to minister to. And yet sometimes we go after people who want to charge us thousands of dollars to just talk to them and get advice and counsel about God. And I'm not judging anyone who does that, and I'm not trying to condemn anyone, because I don't know people's personal relationship with the Lord or what God told them to do. But what I do know is that a lot of people who go down that route end up hurt and disappointed. And so to avoid that, to keep that from happening, we can really seek God about who we should be connecting with, making sure we're not connecting with people for superficial reasons. Because if you connect with someone off the way they look and the way they dress, that's the depths of what you're going to get in God. And don't be surprised if that's all you get, right? It's just, you know, their pretty face and a couple of superficial, shallow words. Some questions that you really can ask yourself are, you know, do they care about you? Do they really care about your soul? You know, are they trying to make money? Is it feel like a marketing scheme, or are they trying to get Jesus to you? Like, that's what we need to look for. Like, do they care about you? Do they ask about you? Do they try to connect with you? Do they try to have a relationship with you? Or are they constantly trying to come up with ways to get your money? Like, that's a clear indication of, you know, if they want you or want your money. Can you access them for genuine interpersonal connection? But when people have a very large following, I do understand it's very, very hard to do that. So my question is, why not look for someone who has less people following them, who really knows God, who loves God, who will literally call you, get on Zoom with you, meet up with you to disciple you? Like, why are we not looking for that? Because it's out there and it's possible. And if you don't know how to do that, I can share with you personally how you can make those connections and how you can, you know, find people who are, and I can actually even try to connect you with some people who are willing and able to do that. And also, you know, we have to be careful. It's the idolatry, like I said, it's the idolatry in our heart. Are we moved by how many people someone has following them? Like, are you following someone because they have a large following and then you think they're cool? Because if that's the case, you're probably going to become one of those numbers, and someone else that's just a part of the number, and you still will not have the interpersonal connection and the discipleship that you need to draw closer to God. Just remember that when you are, you know, looking for a ministry and looking for someone to pour into you and disciple you, that you're making sure that they're making sure that Jesus is the center, that Jesus is highlighted, that he is uplifted, that he is not just something extra that's thrown in, a scripture thrown in here or there to support something that they want to say about relationships or say about whatever it is that they're talking about, money or getting a job, or you know, finding your purpose, whatever the case may be. Making sure that the gospel of Jesus Christ, that Jesus Christ died for me and you, our sins. He loves us and he wants us to have a relationship with him more than he wants us to have a marriage, more than he wants us to have money, or more than he wants us to have a career. He wants us to have a relationship with him first, and everything else will be added. So I hope that this message encourages you. I want to let you know that I'm praying for you, and so I don't have all the answers. If you have any ideas of how I can be of support to you, please comment below, or you can reach out to me personally. I do know that I will continue to give everything that I have, everything that God has poured into me, all the knowledge that I have. I definitely will give that out freely and continue to do that. I don't advertise it as much anymore. I don't talk about it as much anymore, but everything that I've done before is still available. All the freebies, all the courses, all the prayers that I have, they're available, and I actually house them in Grown Women University, which is a online platform for single women. Anything related to the gospel, anything related to prayer, discipleship, growing closer to God, that has always and will always be free. So that's how I differentiate things. If it's related to my degrees and skill sets that I've learned, I do feel comfortable sometimes charging for those things, but anything related to God and the gospel is always going to be free. And if you ever see me charging for it, I ask that you call me out nicely. Of course, you can come to me, you know, and approach me and let me know. You can, I like to be held accountable for my actions and things that God has called us to do. So with that being said, Grown Women University is absolutely free. There's courses on there on practical matters like just fixing your credit that are free, and then there's a prayer center that is filled with prayers, the Pray Like a Wife prayers. I will put them on there for anyone who wants it. I'm not going to sell that book anymore, but the prayers are on there. My book, The Single Woman's Checklist, you can download it on there for free. And there are I have a prayer CD that's free. And anything that I have, anything you want to know, just ask. And if I can't you know, be of service, if I can't help you, because I am only one person, I will definitely tag other women that I trust, that I know if you go to them, they're not going to charge you, they're not going to try to exploit you, they're not going to, you know, be jealous of you or try to hurt you. Women that I trust, I'll definitely tag them in this video. So I hope this video blesses you. If you have any questions, like I said, reach out to me. With my sincere heart, I pray that God continues to bless you, protect you, and keep you.